Canelo Alvarez. Sergey Kovalev is this weekend. Canelo Alvarez jumping up not one, two weight classes to take on old Crusher himself. Interestingly, Crusher is an underdog, I believe, in this fight in the betting odds. But let's just jump to one of the, I think, the more interesting questions that we have here written out for ourselves, which is, do you think Canelo Alvarez can get it done? If he gets it done, how's he going to get it done? What are you expecting from this fight, actually?
Canelo's the favorite for a reason. He's quicker. He's a better boxer. He goes to the body like hellfire, and that's 36-year-old Kovalev's biggest weakness. Look, let's be honest about Kovalev. Was a menacing, bullying puncher when he won the light heavyweight title and put together those title defenses. But Andre Ward exposed something in him, a lack of heart, a front-runnership, something in him to be able to figure him out. And once Kovalev was figured out X's and O's inside the ring, you didn't see that comeback. Now, to Kovalev's credit, he took a big gamble by sticking with that Anthony Yarde title defense that he had in Russia a couple months back, knowing that if he lost the essentially career-defining payday. I mean, I don't know the numbers, but you'd have to assume he's going to make more fighting Canelo in this one night than maybe he had in his entire career.
Probably.
And what did he do against Anthony Yarde? A limited guy, but a big puncher, unbeaten. He walked through hell and came back and rallied to win in ways that we'd never seen in his whole career. But with that said, Canelo's the favorite for two reasons. One, if it goes to the scorecards, Canelo's got this long history. Two, he's the prime guy. He's in that discussion of where I said in the past on the show that we're in a weird time pound for pound. There's 4 or 5, maybe 6 guys who have like a legitimate claim to the throne. Canelo has one of those legitimate claims. But unlike fights like this in the past, unlike a Manny Pacquiao moving up to face Antonio Margarito. Unlike these type of things where you're like, okay, the younger prime guy moving up against the older guy, I think there's more danger in this one for Canelo than any of those guys faced. And the fact that he isn't making Kovalev come down and sacrifice himself to a catchweight is going to give Kovalev a chance. Will Canelo win? Probably. Should he win? Yes. He's tough. He hits hard, all that stuff. But this is going to be fun. And that factor of not really knowing, so often in boxing, even on the highest level, you know what it's going to look like in the end, right? The hope that you have for one person to do that one thing that they do good is somewhat minimal usually. This time around, he's got to be careful. Canelo has to be careful, even with his advantages going to the body and hand speed and all that, because Kovalev is not just a 36-year-old limited slugger with questionable chin. He's a guy who can box. He's a guy who uses his jab very well and uses it as a weapon. So the way that Canelo is going to walk this out, if it goes long, if it goes into the second half of the fight, I don't see how Kovalev wins. He's not going to win a decision, and he tires and wears down in every big fight, even the ones that he wins. If he's able to turn this into a 6-round fight, Luke, and just say, look.
Just, what do you mean, stop him in 6?
Just go, look, if we get past 6, I'm probably going to lose the fight anyway. So 6 rounds, I'm emptying the tank. I'm going to make this a fight. The entertainment value goes up. His only chance of winning goes up. Canelo will be in there for an absolute fight. And you may think that's wishful thinking if you're looking at this from just purely a betting standpoint, but Kovalev's got more in the tank than guys in this spot tend to have, in my personal belief. Even with some of those questionable intangibles, if he can come out there first 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds and just fight and make this a fight and use the jab to set it up, you're going to have an interesting chess match in there that could get physical, that could get heavy, and we're going to find out a lot of things. We're going to find out if Canelo's power does anything at 175, just as much as we're going to find out if his chin can take some of the offense that inevitably Kovalev's going to hit him with.
Well, anybody from the weight class at 160, from middleweight, that Canelo's coming from, if anyone has a chance for that power to translate, it's Canelo Alvarez, as you mentioned, particularly to the body, given some of the vulnerabilities of Kovalev. I was doing some thinking about this fight, watching a little bit of tape on these guys in anticipation of today's episode. You know, it's interesting. I don't know which way Canelo's going to fight, because he fought Triple G, obviously a very different fighter, I understand. But in one fight going backwards, another fight going forwards, he has an opportunity to do either of those against Kovalev. Kovalev's got the much longer reach, but I don't think he's as snappy with his punches as he used to be, which is going to give a great counterpuncher in Canelo Alvarez, a faster fighter in Canelo Alvarez, probably you would imagine, a chance to just absolutely swarm him in certain intervals. Again, if the power doesn't translate, all this is for naught. I kind of wonder about that. But also, I think the jab, the educated jab of Canelo Alvarez, his ability to defensively push his way to the inside, I think the speed is going to be differential. This is what I mean, everything we're talking about here is why we were pointing out, yes, do we want to see a third fight with Triple G? Of course. Which person breathing oxygen who watches boxing doesn't wish to see this? But that doesn't mean there aren't real, interesting, credible merits to this contest. There quite clearly are. You can favor and shade in a direction of either fighter depending on your perspective, but no one really knows. And again, you could say, well, that's the case of every fight. No, it's not. When Pacquiao fought Clottey, there was no mystery. I wasn't thinking, what is Josh Clottey going to do to Manny Pacquiao? You're thinking, okay, how is Manny Pacquiao going to feast on this fool one way or the other? And again, he just did this for the whole time, so he couldn't really, but neither here nor there. This one is not that way. This is a fight between open-ended, I want to say, heavy gunners in different kinds of ways.
The best comparison for this fight is Sugar Ray Leonard. After coming back from retirement to beat Marvin Hagler, he moves up to 168 and fights Donnie Lalonde, the Canadian puncher with the long hair. For some reason, they put a light heavyweight title at stake in that fight as well. And Leonard had to get up off the canvas early in that fight and figure Lalonde out and eventually rally to stop him. And it was hella theater. I remember watching that as a kid. This has some potential in that, but it's going to be up to Kovalev to make that jab count. He can box. There's some craft. You saw him box against Yard, and he was in trouble to kind of work his way back in.
Of the two, obviously, he has the much better amateur pedigree.
Yeah. Canelo had a very brief amateur career. So it's going to be really interesting. And I think, we got to wake up. This is the Canelo era, Luke. And it's been defined, yes, by, look, you can say he's a golden boy type guy, not the reference to Oscar, but a pretty boy. You can say he gets the decisions. You can bring up the tainted meat. You can bring up a couple bad things. He waited out Triple G 2 years, never forget, by the way. But this era has been defined as Floyd walking away and Canelo stepping up and says, I got this. I'm a global star, and I'm going to fight the best at every turn. And they asked him during his media day this past week, what happens if you beat Kovalev? Will you stay at 175? What about this guy, Artur Beterbiev, who just blew away Vodzik last week? And Canelo, now it's just words, but Canelo said, I'd fight him. So at this point, we're in a spot where you can't doubt that.
Me gusta. All right, let's move along with our last topic before Jay has an aneurysm in the back.